Well,
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining in today. It's the fourth session of the webinar series that I have started to run. Today, we have Divya Kaur with us joining in live. And we are going to talk about the challenges and the successes that happen during the course of your PhD program. The challenges and the successes. Before we begin, let me introduce you and tell you a bit about Divya and all her extraordinary achievements in such a short span of her career. So, Divya was born in Ajmer in Rajasthan, which is a very beautiful city. She completed her school education from Sophia Senior Secondary School, Ajmer. And then she pursued her post graduation in English from Banasthali Vidyapit in 2019. She then joined Malviya National Institute of Technology in Jaipur as a full time research scholar to pursue her PhD, which she completed in January 2023. And her PhD was in the area of technology enhanced language learning. So, which is a very interesting topic, especially when in such a multicultural environment where we need to communicate with many different people from different nationalities, and we need to have a grasp of languages more than our mother tongue. She is currently an assistant professor at Swami Keshavan Institute of Technology in Jaipur. She has experience in organizing workshops and conferences in the capacity of an organizing committee member, which is, I would say, a very big achievement for the recent PhD scholar, a PhD graduate. She has also presented her research papers at several international conferences and also has journal publications in UGC, Scopus, and Web of Science Index journals. So that is great, and she's going to talk about it today about her experience uh, in writing these journal articles. Furthermore, from January 2022 to December 2022, she worked as a technical assistant in the educational project sponsored by the government of Rajasthan, and she continues to serve that in her capacity. She's currently reviewer of a SAGE Open SCI journal, the International Journal of Mobile and Blended Learning, which is a Scopus Q3 journal. Her interest lies in the field of technology enhanced learning, English language teaching, contemporary South Asian literature, digital humanities, and communication skills. And after doing all this, if she has some time, she also likes to do some sketching, dancing, and music. So, Divya, welcome to the show. It is a pleasure to have you today. And I guess everyone is looking forward to hearing from you and your experience on the entire research experience, starting from the time you enrolled into your PhD program. All right, so
thank you so much,
the
sir.
stage is
This
up
was such an elaborate
to you.
introduction. It's my honor to be here, sir, because you continue inspiring so many scholars like me with your multiple endeavors and your multifarious personality. So it's a privilege being here today.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Divya. So, to give you a bit of a background, the way I got to know Divya was I had conducted an online course a few years ago, and Divya was one of the participants in that course. And I can see her progress from the time she's joined the course and the time that she has now finished her PhD degree with multiple publications. So it is really a great achievement. So congrats, Divya.
Thank you
I'm
so
really
much, sir.
impressed.
Thank you,
So
sir.
let's begin the conversation. Yeah, tell me or tell the audience a bit more about you, or how you bit about your background. Where did you study, and how did you got into your PhD? So that bit, if you can
Okay.
talk about.
So I joined PhD in 2019, And to be very honest, I was completely unaware of what research is. I was completely naive, had no idea. I just had this notion of getting a doctoral degree,
Uh-huh.
not knowing what its actual meaning is. But once I got into the program, I interacted with professors, I interacted with so many scholars, and then I realized the gravity of research, how
Uh-huh.
important it is to deal with contemporary issues. And that's how, and then if I talk about my topic, it
Hmm.
was the initial, I think, 6 months of my PhD coursework when the pandemic struck and there was worldwide lockdown. And
Uh,
I always knew that, that I had to deal with English language teaching. I had keen interest in language teaching.
yeah.
But when the pandemic struck, I realized the importance of technology. Not just
Hmm.
me, I think it was global.
Everyone, I guess, isn't it?
All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
As we transition from offline mode to online mode of pedagogy, I
Hmm.
realized that it is a matter of concern which needs to be studied in greater depths. And that's how this journey of technology enhanced language learning began.
Yeah, yeah. So, did you have the thought of doing a PhD before? Like, was it planned that you want to you want to do your PhD, or how did it happen?
So, as I already mentioned, that I was completely unaware of what research is.
Uh,
But during my master, I was just fascinated by the idea of pursuing PhD because I had friends and relatives who had been pursuing PhD or who had already been awarded their doctorate. I was also impressed by all my professors. I had
uh,
held high regards for them. So that's how I developed this fascination and joined the PhD program. But the actual journey began, I think, after 6 months when I realized the
uh,
gravity of research.
okay, okay. So, at MNIT, when you begin your PhD, what is the process like? So, do you have to do some coursework before you start your PhD, or what is the?
So, to get into a PhD program, first of all, we have to qualify a written examination,
Uh-huh.
and the selected candidates are called for interview. And once you qualify the interview, you get into, you are assigned a supervisor, and then you get into a coursework for
Okay.
3 semesters. And
Hmm.
by the end of fourth semester, you're expected to come up with a refined proposal, which we call a state of art seminar,
Okay.
wherein you confirm what study you are going to pursue further.
So, what kind of courses did you have to do in that earlier 2 years?
So there are multiple courses from varied fields, and we can choose from them because I belong from an English background. So I had uh, chosen subjects related to my field, like dynamics of communication and history of English literature. Then we have
Hmm.
research methodology, qualitative, quantitative. So our
Yeah.
focus was basically on RM subject.
Okay.
So
So
that
it is kind of
developed the base. Yes, sir.
preparing you or getting you ready into uh,
Absolutely, sir.
getting in the. So was that from 2019 to 21? Is that the 2 years,
Yes,
or
sir.
was it
2000
before
August
2019?
August 2019 to December 2020 for
19.
three
Okay. So
consecutive semesters.
three semesters. Okay. All right.
So I had already presented my proposal in October. So
Huh.
that's how it was.
So did you attend other presentations or state of the art seminars by
Yes,
other?
sir.
I mean, some seniors from you?
Yes, sir. I did. I did. That was
Huh.
much needed
Yeah,
to get
I
an
think so
idea
because
of. Yes, sir.
because I
So
think
yes,
seeing others present and knowing that you have to do that
yes,
sooner or later, I think it is a good experience to be
yes, sir.
part of that and attend and I guess learn from it, isn't it?
Absolutely, sir. Irrespective
Mm.
of how clear you are about your topic and methodology, it's always better to attend others' presentations because we know how they present their ideas and come up
Yeah.
with uh, such good visualizations and PPTs. So it's always good to attend presentations.
That's right. That's right. So was there during these 3 semesters that you had to pursue your studies? What was the most interesting or the funniest bit, and what was probably the most challenging bit?
Okay, so I would say that I was very indecisive and
Uh-huh.
I kept on switching my topics for quite a
Okay.
while.
Yeah.
So my supervisor, ma'am, had to deal with my change of topics quite a lot because it's actually we feel overwhelmed, so because there is
Uh,
so much to achieve. There are so many topics and such vast literature that we read all
yeah.
together during our coursework. So it just
Hmm.
feels like we want to achieve everything in a go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kept switching my topics. I couldn't decide what to work on. I'd probably work for 3 to 4 weeks, and then next month I'd go up to my supervisor and tell ma'am it's time to switch. So I think I wasted a lot of time in that, but yeah,
And I think it is not just you. I guess anyone who is pursuing their PhD does go through that phase where they are still deciding whether the topic that they have selected is really a very relevant topic or not.
right.
And on many occasions, I think if you read more and then you see, oh, I think this topic is interesting, and you read
This
more
could
and
have
then you
been
think, oh,
better.
that is interesting, and then
Yes,
you kind of get lost
yes, yes.
in that confusion, right? Okay, so it is good that you had a good supervisor who was patient enough
Absolutely,
to.
sir. I have been fortunate enough to have Dr. Nija Saraswat ma'am as my supervisor. She
uh,
has always motivated me. She never discouraged me because she knew
hmm,
that it's a part of a journey. So
yeah.
that's how we learn with experience.
Okay, okay. So how did your presentation go? Your state of the art presentation. Do you remember how it went?
Yes, sir.
Were you nervous before that? And
Sir, yes, of course, I'm nervous even today. That's
okay.
quite natural. But yes, I
Uh,
remember that it went really well. I had all of my DREC members, the panel members, really appreciated my
uh,
presentation because I remember I had worked really hard for the presentation, not just for the topic, but also for the visualization that you bring in, the way you
uh,
present what you
yeah.
are trying to research on. So it went
Hmm.
really well. Everyone appreciated my co-scholars. Complimented me for the efforts I had put in. For one, each slide had a
Yeah.
different organization, so it was a lot of hard work.
So did you design your slides or the visualizations in PowerPoint, or did you use any other
So I
tool?
used Canva.
Oh,
I
you used
prefer
Canva.
using
Okay.
Canva, and I began using it during my state of art presentation and have been using it till date. I think it's best to use Canva.
Yeah, I think it is a very powerful tool.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, even I
Yes,
do
yes.
use it for most of my design work. I've been using
Yes,
it for I don't
yes,
know how many years.
absolutely. So it has so many templates and so many options for personalization as well.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Yeah, yeah. Cool. So once I guess, so that brings me to the question of what was your research about? What did you do? Now, what problem did you solve? And what was the outcome of your research?
Yes, sir. So, as my topic suggests, my topic was technology enhanced language learning for
Uh-huh.
strengthening English communicative competence in engineering institutes in Rajasthan. So, basically, the problem I addressed in my research
Hmm.
lies in the communicative competence of engineering students in the
Okay.
state of Rajasthan because there was a dearth of literature available,
Uh,
and whatever literature I had read throughout my coursework suggested that there is a lack of communicative competence among engineering students. So
hmm.
I decided that I have to take up this topic because it's the need of
Okay.
the hour. But then,
Yeah.
as I said, when the pandemic struck
Uh,
and we realized the importance of technology and we transitioned to online mode of teaching learning, so
uh,
then I started reading literature related to ICT,
hmm.
and that's how I interlinked both these topics of communicative competence and technology enhanced language learning. So I decided to take up this problem and
Hmm.
identify how students are making use of current technology available to them
Yeah.
and how they perceive the use of technology and how what are the probable uh, technological tools we can include
Okay. So
for
when you
students to improve their competence.
yeah. So when you talk about communication competence, what does that entail? What does it mean? Is it how the engineering students find it difficult to communicate in the job market or when they go for interviews, or what
Yes.
aspect were you
So,
studying?
if we talk about the aspect, I would say it is the issue of employability. because
Okay.
there are multiple reports that suggest that uh, the students, because they lack communicative competence, they tend to lose many employment opportunities.
Uh-huh.
So there were many recent articles, newspaper articles and reports which I had referred to gather
Yeah.
this factual data, and that's
Hmm.
the problem of employability which I wanted to target.
So then what, during the course of your thesis, what is it that you did? What did you do? I mean, how did you address or tackle this problem?
Okay. So, sir, as I mentioned that my objective of my thesis was to identify how students are making use of current technology, because as we all know
Hmm.
that it's quite handy these days. Everyone has mobile phones, Android phones,
Yeah.
tablets, computers, laptops. So I wanted to identify how they are making use of technology, what is their current level of communicative competence as of now, and
Mm-hmm.
how they perceive inducing more technological tools in their curriculum, because as of now we have language labs in the technical institutes, so
Uh-huh.
students are practicing speaking, reading, writing skills through language lab softwares. So
Yeah.
I did a survey. So
Hmm.
basically my study is student centric, so
Yeah.
I
Okay.
addressed all these problems through a survey and gathered
Hmm.
data from around 500 students from technical institutes in Rajasthan to
Okay.
watch their perceptions towards the use of technology in language
So
learning.
when you mean use of technology, are you referring to some apps or softwares that help them improve their communication capability? Is that what you're referring to when you
Sir,
say?
because yes, sir, because as of now, we do not include any apps as such in our curriculum. It is only
Uh-huh.
the language labs which the students have been using since years.
Okay.
If I talk of engineering institutes as of now, in their first year of BTech,
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
have English classes. So
Okay.
for one consecutive year, they are induced to language lab. There is a software. So
Uh,
basically, I wanted to know how they are using that software and is it actually helping them improve their skills? And if not, how can we work upon it? So I wanted to just
okay.
identify the current scenario and the loopholes so that
Uh,
it can be improved upon.
so then, as part of your study, what did you do? Did you find the challenges and then you developed something to solve it, or what was the
Yes, sir.
outcome of your study?
So I identified, because I had multiple variables in my study. So I
Uh-huh.
identified what are the motivations for the student to use technology and what
Yeah.
are the factors that inhibit them from using it. So
Uh,
through those students' perceptions and recommendations and their suggestions, we concluded and we came up with certain implications how
okay.
we as language instructors can help them out and what all applications, because students are much more aware. I believe that
Hmm.
Gen Z is
Yeah.
far more advanced than we are. So there were
Yeah.
multiple applications and problems which students highlighted, because we also had open-ended questions in our survey. So
Hmm.
through that, we came up with certain implications, practical implications, which can be implemented considering the current curriculum.
Okay. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Did you happen to interview some students, or it was mostly
So
open-ended
it was,
responses and surveys?
through survey and focus group discussion.
Okay. So
Yes.
I imagine the focus. How did you do the focus groups during the pandemic? Was it done
So,
online?
I did it at my institute first, and
Huh.
once the lockdown opened, I did it physically at the other
Okay.
institutes.
Okay. So how many institutes kind of did you
So
did
there
these
were
focus
around
groups?
18 institutes.
18. Oh wow, that's a
Yes, sir.
lot. So and in total, how many members would have been there in the focus groups?
So one focus group discussion had around 6 to 7 members, depending on the number of students.
Okay. All right. So over 100
Yes.
students you would have
Yes,
gathered
sir.
in you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I had focus group at every institute I visited.
And how did you manage to arrange these focus groups? Did you have contacts in the different universities, or you had to find and go talk to them? How did you manage to?
So it was a bit difficult actually. A survey wasn't that difficult, because
Yeah.
what I did is I first surveyed the students, and
Hmm.
then after the survey, I contacted the faculty members, and at some institutes, I contacted the students directly. because
Okay.
I had already gathered their information through my questionnaire. So I
Yeah.
contacted the students, and if they were willing to join me for the focus group, then
Hmm.
I did that.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
think
So
they were
what?
not
How?
actually bound to be there.
All right. So what tool did you use for your surveys?
So I used Google Forms,
Google Forms. Okay. All right.
Google
And how
Forms,
did you
and then
manage?
analyze the data later on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And how did you how did you distribute it, the Google Forms? Because you only
So
wanted to
via
limit
mail.
it to Rajasthan, right?
Yes, sir. I
Hmm.
identified the institutes and then I shared it via mail.
Ah, okay. So it was so you didn't use
Yes.
any online like putting it on LinkedIn or any other
No,
groups.
sir, because I identified the institutes I want to target and then I shared it via mail. So
Ah, all
I think there are multiple available. There's one Survey Monkey as well, which is
right.
popularly being used these days. But I
Yeah.
worked on Google Form.
Google. I think Google Forms is good enough. I mean, it does the job, and
Yes,
especially
it
you can
very well
create
does the job.
multiple pages. Yeah. So I think
Yes,
I find Google
yes,
Forms is quite handy as well.
yes, sir.
Cool. So that's good. I mean, so what is, so how do you see, I don't know, this may be out of the scope of your research. I don't know whether you did that or not, but you mentioned you came up with some implications, right? So how can that be actually executed now? So are the 18 institutes where you surveyed, are they taking some actions to apply your research in their institute?
Sir, as of now, I have not conveyed that information or haven't disseminated that information to the institutes because I
Okay.
have recently completed my PhD. But
Uh,
once it is approved, I am planning to actually disseminate it, the information or the implications that we have uh, come upon.
yeah. And do you think that it would be uh, relatively easy for them to adopt the suggestions that you would have, that you would
Uh,
recommend?
yes. So
Uh,
to make it easy and feasible for them, we try to keep it as simple as possible because
mm,
I have not devised any pedagogy as such. I
yeah.
have uh, given some suggestions on what the existing curriculum is. So we have
Uh,
just devised a few suggestions, not like transforming the pedagogy drastically. So
okay.
just to keep it manageable and feasible for
But,
instructors. So possibly now that I am also serving as an instructor, so I
yeah.
try to include those tips in my classes.
Okay. That is nice. That is nice. So, how did you validate your findings? How do you know that the results that you gathered or the inputs that you got from the survey and the focus groups? How did you validate those results or the findings?
Okay. So I collected the data via Google Forms and then I
Yeah.
used the SPSS, Statistical Software
Mm-hmm.
for Social Sciences Statistical Package for Social Sciences for analyzing my data. And
Uh-huh.
through some analysis techniques, I validated and checked the reliability and then came up with the results, outcomes of the data.
Huh.
Empirically,
No.
I validated the data.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Cool. So I think that research, the whole research itself sounds very promising, very useful and practical, right? So that can have uh, real visible results, I guess, once you communicate back not only to these 18 institutes where you did the focused group survey, focus groups, but anyone, I guess, right, can benefit from your
So glad
findings.
to know.
Yeah, so I think what we need to do, I would recommend, is to promote your findings through non-academic means, right? So you have developed this. I don't know what you have developed an approach. You said it's not a pedagogy yet, but it may be an approach, or it could be a recommendation,
Right,
or a guide that they can
right,
follow to improve their students'
right,
experiences, right? Or communication competence.
right.
So if the universities follow it over the next 2 to 3 years, and then they see improvement in their student communicative skills, then I think that shows the result from your research effort, right?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
Even
So
if
I
you
think
only
every
made 1% of contribution, I think the purpose would be
uh,
served.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think from 1% you have to take it all the way to 100%.
Right.
Don't be just happy only with 1%. We have to go all the way
Absolutely,
because
sir. But
you have spent
not
these
doing
three
over
years.
ambitions.
Uh, no, spending 3 years of your life, right?
Yes,
Three and a half years,
right.
is is quite a big portion of your life.
Absolutely,
If
sir.
you live 100 years, then that's 3% of your life, right? So
Absolutely.
that contribution that you derive from that, it has to have maximum impact. So once
Definitely,
the
sir.
research is done, the focus has to be on impact, and impact doesn't happen. Um, how do I say, on its own? You have to
Right.
actively take some action
Yes, sir.
to make your research uh, have that impact. Right. So now research is finished. You have to also now start focusing on the impact side of your research.
Very true, sir. I'll definitely take up your recommendation.
Okay, so this all sounds good, but PhD is not always a fun and joyful ride, right? You may have
Very
seen a
rightly
lot
said,
of,
sir.
yeah, it's always a lot of ups and downs in the course of your PhD. So let's talk a bit about that and try to see. I mean, you can share your thoughts and your experience with our audience. So if they are starting their PhD now, what is it that they can learn from your experience that would make their PhD journey much more engaging and enjoyable rather than stressful and tiresome.
Right.
So let's talk about some of your achievements. Right, you've told me that you have had three journal publications. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And a few conference publications as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I think that is a big achievement, right? During your PhD, if you can come up with
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
six papers, I think that's really impressive. So I want to know, or maybe you can share about your experience of publishing, because I guess every PhD or research scholar uh, has that ambition or has that vision to publish publish their papers in good and high quality, highly ranked journals during their PhD. So walk us through your experience. What was the first paper that you published, and the journey of all the six papers?
Okay. So the very first paper, when I began working on that paper, I was
Uh,
quite skeptical and nervous because, as it is always said, that it's too difficult to crack this nut. It's not
uh,
an easy task to publish in an index journal. So when I
yeah.
began working on a paper, I was too nervous. So I started reading some papers for reference because I had
Uh,
targeted a journal. I
yeah.
already had a journal in mind which addressed my area of
Hmm.
research. So
Yeah.
I collected a few papers pertaining to my area of interest, and I started reading
Hmm.
those papers and try
Okay.
to understand the kind of format and the
Hmm.
writing style that they follow because I had no idea of writing papers. I had only
Uh,
presented a couple of papers at conferences, and that too of very poor quality, to be honest. So when I started reading the papers from that index journal, I got an estimate because I read it multiple times. I remember there were around three papers. I
uh,
kept reading them on and on. I had a print of those papers. I kept making notes. So I identified the kind of writing style they are following, the kind of
hmm.
flow that goes on, and the important things you are to highlight in a research paper. So
Hmm.
then I planned accordingly. I planned a template for my own paper because I
Yeah.
had my topic in mind, and
Hmm.
that's how I began writing that paper. And
Okay.
although it took more than a year to publish, but
Uh,
I'm glad that it did. and that kind of motivated me because that was my very first paper. I wasn't expecting
Hmm.
it to be published in an index journal,
Uh,
but it's I was kind of motivated, and I felt that yes, I could do it, and then I started
hmm.
working on other papers as well.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So what? So these six articles. Can you tell me what is it that you published in those? Was it a literature review paper? Was it a proposal? What was the content of these articles?
So one paper of mine is a bibliometric paper,
Okay.
and the rest of the papers are empirical studies.
Okay.
Yes,
So as you progressed through your research, published, uh, you compartmentalized different aspects of your research and published them in
yes,
each of these articles as
yes,
you
sir.
progress.
Because I would say that the very first paper is kind of a small scale study of my own PhD work, because
Huh.
I just wanted to validate what I'm about to accomplish in the next 3 years. So
Yeah.
it's like a small scale study of what I did in my PhD. So I just divided
Hmm.
into different segments, and that's how I published these 5 papers.
Okay, so I think this is something interesting. I guess it is interesting for other research scholars who are listening that consistently publishing
Absolutely.
throughout your PhD program or PhD degree, I think is important because it kind of uh, builds up your uh, confidence, I would say, to
Absolutely.
that you can do it, and once you do twice, then it becomes second
Yes.
nature to publish. And then if you
Very
haven't
rightly
published,
said.
then you feel like, oh, something is missing. I haven't published in a long time. So
So it
yeah,
is actually a very time-taking process, and
uh,
if we lose consistency, I believe then uh, it gets really difficult, because once we are done submitting one paper, so as soon as I
uh,
submitted my first paper, within a
hmm,
month or two, I started working on the second, because I knew that the first one is going to take a long time to be published, and
uh,
so that I don't feel that futility within me, I had to work on something new. So by the
yeah.
time one paper gets published, the other one is
Hmm.
under progress. So
Okay,
that's
okay.
how
Now that
consistently I think we should be planning our publications.
Yeah, so I think every scholar should have to have a publication strategy on how
Right.
they intend or to publish or
Absolutely.
what they should publish, and I think your supervisor can guide you. And because when you are doing your PhD, you may or may not know exactly what can be published, so you need
Right.
some guidance there to decide whether this is something that I can publish or not.
Very true, sir.
And
It was my supervisor who motivated me to work
uh,
on the initial paper, because I was quite hesitant, and the journal we were targeting was a very reputed one. So
Hmm.
I was doubting my capabilities actually, but my supervisor, she stood by me and she supported
Uh,
me, and that's how we strategically planned that this is how
okay.
we are going to break this, because we cannot publish everything in a paper, so we have to strategically break down our objectives, and that's
Hmm.
how we both sat together and planned, and we consistently kept on working on papers and publishing them.
So, how was your interaction with your supervisor? Like, was it a weekly that you met, or was it like on a project, like a paper by paper, or was it on a research? Maybe tell us about your experience
Yes,
working
yes,
with
yes.
your supervisors.
So since I was a full-time scholar, so we met
Ah,
regularly. So
okay.
I think we almost met every day, but we had regular meetings. At least we planned weekly meetings. So
Hmm.
apart from the regular meetings we had in our department, we
Yeah.
planned one day a week wherein I would discuss my progress, what all I have
Okay.
accomplished, what all I have studied, read, or any new idea I came up with in that
Hmm.
entire week. And even during Corona, my supervisor
Hmm.
came up with this online meeting strategy. So we
Okay.
were 4 scholars, so we all four
Hmm.
would gather together in a Google Meet
Hmm.
and one by one discuss our progress, so that
Hmm.
my fellows can learn something from my readings, my progress, and vice versa. So that's how we
Uh,
kept interacting. So it was
yeah.
interaction at regular intervals.
Hmm. And
So
while
just
while
to add,
wo-
yes.
yeah, go on.
I would just like to add in one point, sir, maybe if it
Hmm.
helps other scholars, that whenever we had regular meetings with my supervisor, so I
Hmm.
made it a point to note down the important points which we had discussed, because
Okay.
initially I made this mistake because we used to have long meetings and
Hmm.
multiple discussions, so we tend to forget what our
Hmm.
supervisor has recommended, any
Ah.
important point that they've highlighted, so we tend to forget it maybe in a course of few days. So I made
Okay.
it a point to note down whatever important discussions we had, and
Hmm.
either in my diary or I kept it over mail. So I
Okay.
mailed it to my supervisor, or I mailed it to my own email ID, just to keep a
Hmm.
track of what discussion we had on this particular date, so
Yeah.
that we can stay organized, and we can get back later on when we have another weekly meeting with my supervisor. So
Hmm.
at least I know what points we covered last time, and that's what we are dealing with next
So
week.
did you not try any software or any app like a project management app to kind of coordinate these meetings and for record keeping rather than just using email?
So not for project management, but for
Hmm.
others, like for example, I would say I have consistently been using Mendeley
Okay.
as a reading software, and it also
Huh.
serves the purpose of a referencing software as well as a reading software, because it has multiple options to highlight, to add notes, uh,
Huh.
to add some important points, and then we can also collaborate. If we are
Yeah.
working in a team, we have an option to create a group on Mendeley, wherein all
Hmm.
the participants can add their inputs, and we can see, because it shows different colors for different participants. So that's
Hmm.
how we collaborated over Mendeley.
Huh. Okay. All right. No, I think that record keeping, I think, is I guess quite important aspect because that helps you to be organized, right? To
Definitely,
plan
sir.
your work. Hmm.
Yes, sir. Being organized, I think, is the most essential aspect of
Hmm.
pursuing PhD, or, for that matter, any project.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So, did you in your in the coursework that you did earlier on, did was there a unit on project management? You
No, so
mentioned
it
research
wasn't.
methods.
It wasn't a part of the curriculum, but
Huh.
we had some seminars in which we were introduced to
Huh.
such project management and referencing tools. So that's how I got to know about these softwares.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because I think it is a good idea. Maybe if in the first couple of years or 3 semesters when you're doing your coursework, if there is a project management unit, then I think you should do it. And if it is not, then you should find some other course outside, online, or
Right.
even yeah, offline course where you can learn project management. Because I think you have
Yes.
to consider or take PhD as a project, and if you manage it
Definitely.
as a project, I think you can leverage the power of the project management field, right? How it has evolved, and the
Yes.
techniques and the technologies and the tools that are
Right.
available to make a project successful.
Yes, and as
So,
you mentioned initially, that PhD is not an easy process. So if
hmm,
we stay organized and work systematically, I think it actually eases the entire journey altogether,
yeah, yeah,
because we
I
will
agree.
not feel burdened if we take help from certain resources which are available to us. So
Hmm,
it definitely eases out that burden.
yeah. So I
And so
think,
I would also, yes,
yeah, please go
yes.
on.
So I would also like to thank you for the idea of template which you gave in your workshop, during the
Huh.
SLR workshop, and since then I have been implementing that idea of using templates, and to be very honest, it really helped me a lot, because
Hmm.
thereon I had templates for my papers, I had templates for note making, for
Okay.
literature review, and for everything, and it actually feels really sorted.
Yeah, I think because it kind of gives you something to hold on to, and you
Right,
can
because
start
it wastes a
structuring
lot of
your.
time, sir. Because every time
Yeah.
if we begin from scratch, every day,
Hmm.
I would say we waste a lot of time in that. So if you already have templates available for everything, if we have segregated all the folders or
Hmm.
whatever softwares, templates we're using, it really helps a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Because I've seen. a lot of research scholars, they kind of struggle a lot
Right.
during their PhD, and a lot of that can be or is because they are firstly they're not probably properly planned
Yes.
what they want to do, or or they are not organized, and
Right.
which is I guess causes them a lot of uh, trouble or challenges or stress
Absolutely.
during the course of their PhD.
Right.
So how did you manage? You have been quite successful in during your PhD with so many publications and a really good research, but there should be an other side to this story as well, right?
Yes, sir. Of
So
course it is.
uh, so share some of your experiences with our scholars.
Okay, so initially when I began, I was unaware that we have so many resources available for our
Uh,
help. So
hmm,
I felt that I am completely disorganized because I was reading so much every day, but I couldn't
hmm.
keep a track of what I'm reading.
Okay.
So I did not know how to make full utilization of what I have read and how to come to an outcome, how to identify the research gap, how to prepare my proposal. So that's
Uh,
when this organization skill comes into play, that whenever initially whenever I started reading something, so I kept a track of it using a literature review matrix. I
okay.
prepared a matrix and I
Hmm,
kept, as I mentioned, that again it served the purpose of a template. So I organized whatever I read in that matrix, and later on, there were multiple papers available in my Excel sheet wherein I
hmm.
used the matrix, and there I could highlight using different colors like green, yellow, red. Depending
Uh,
on that's the kind of strategy I use. That when I liked a paper,
yeah.
I highlighted it in green. When I
Hmm.
didn't, I highlighted in red. So later on,
Okay.
when we get back to that uh, matrix again, maybe
Uh,
way ahead during our PhD journey, so we know that this is what we had done. And
uh,
whenever we get back, we get to know that, okay, this was the date and this is what I had read on that particular date. So
uh,
I started organizing my tasks. Like, for example, note making,
uh,
literature review, note making, and nowadays there is this software available called Notion, which is
Notion.
widely
Yeah.
being used for note
Hmm.
making. I think it's actually it also serves the purpose.
Uh,
So first thing is being organized, but then uh, if I highlight the other side of the story, because there are two
uh,
sides to a coin, so
yeah.
there are times when you actually feel you feel futile, you feel inferior, because
Hmm.
there's a lot of competition out there, and it's
Yeah.
always good to be competitive, but
Hmm.
not at the cost of your own mental health, I would say. And there are a lot of
Yeah.
PhD
Very
scholars
true.
who burden themselves with a lot of responsibilities because there's a lot to
Hmm.
do. So we feel overwhelmed. We try to
Uh,
compete with our fellow scholars, and there's that peer pressure of publications, working on different projects, taking up
hmm.
endeavors. So that kind of took a toll on my peace of mind as well.
Okay.
So that was a phase which I think every scholar has to deal with,
Hmm. Hmm. So how did you
because
manage it? What did you do to kind of uh, manage that situation or that
yes.
experience? Hmm.
So I would say that we need to just identify our priorities. As
Okay.
if I say it is about dynamic optimism,
Uh huh.
we know that we know what optimism is. It's about being positive, being hopeful, having faith. But the difference
Hmm.
between dynamic optimism and optimism is that dynamic optimism deals with action. So it is not
Uh,
just about being hopeful, having faith, but also about how you can take some actions to achieve what you want in life. So
hmm.
you don't merely rely on hope, faith, blessings, but you actually work for it. So
Yeah.
then so there are different actually. I don't think we have so much time to delve into details, but I would just like to
Hmm.
highlight a few points which I think
Yeah.
might be useful.
Hmm.
Firstly, is prioritizing. You need to
Hmm.
prioritize your work and understand what is important to you. What others are doing might not be essential for you. So we should set targets for ourselves which are achievable, not
Yeah.
being over ambitious. So that, say for example, so if we work on a planner.
Hmm.
These days planners are handily available. So if we
Hmm.
plan a year, we plan a month, we plan a week, and or even if we plan a day, at times we tend to be so over ambitious that,
Hmm.
today I have to accomplish all these tasks, and maybe by the end
Yeah.
of the day, if I'm unable to do that, I will feel wasted. I'll feel that I have
Uh,
wasted my day. So
yeah.
what I did is I cut short my over ambitiousness, and I
Uh,
decided what is to be done first, what are my
yeah.
priorities. And
Hmm.
that's how I changed my planner altogether. I was working on a monthly, weekly planner. Then I changed to uh, not using those planners, and I planned my
Hmm.
day, that okay,
Okay.
today these are the couple of tasks which I want to accomplish. So once I'm
Uh,
done with the two tasks, you actually feel that kind of accomplishment within yourself, and you feel
yeah.
motivated that okay, there were two tasks and I have done
Uh,
that, instead
so
of
that
listing out 10.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing that you brought up, Adivya. So,
Yes.
when you're doing something for the first time, right? So you do not know how long it will take you to finish that task,
Yes.
right? So how did you manage that? So I mean, how did you decide that this task is going to take me, half a day or a full day or 2 days?
Right.
And was that something iterative that first time maybe when you're writing your paper, for example, first paper may be an experience that okay, this
Yes.
takes me this many this long, but when you do it the second time, it may be you are a bit more clear with
Efficient.
your
Yes.
so was that how you did it, or did you have something else that you kind of followed to plan
So
your activities?
I would say that it came after multiple failures because
uh,
I had so many planners. And for example, if I planned my day that these are the 10 tasks which I am going to complete, I had a lot on my to do list. And when
okay.
by the end of the day I was not able to accomplish that, I really felt bad for myself. So instead
uh,
of 10, I just reduced it to 3 or 4. So
okay.
I, according to my efficiency, what I could
uh,
do, I reduced my to-do list, and
hmm.
that's how I began from scratch again. And as
Yeah.
I improved my efficiency, as you rightly mentioned, that writing first paper is difficult, but then as you
Hmm.
become competent, the
Yeah.
process becomes a bit easy. So when I realized that I am becoming more and more efficient, so that to-do list again went from 3 to 5 to 6 to 7. So
Nice.
that's how I gradually progressed with myself. Because
Okay.
initially I was being too hard on myself, I would say.
And I think, yeah, you have to look after yourself, not getting
Yes,
over ambitious and then kind of
absolutely.
hurt yourself in that course of it. Yeah. So did
Because
you
I
when you
Yeah, yes, sir,
yeah, go
please.
on.
Uh, no, I was just adding on to your statement that it's quite natural for PhD scholars to feel
Hmm.
that way because if the paper gets rejected, if they are unable
Hmm.
to present at a reputed conference or unable to take up a
Yeah.
new project, so they actually,
Hmm.
it's very natural for them to feel sorry for
Huh.
themselves and feel that inferiority complex.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is true, and that happens through every uh, PhD scholar's life, right? The
Right.
the acceptances and the rejections of publications is part,
Absolutely. We
part
have to
and
strengthen
parcel of
ourselves.
the PhD program, right? No,
Yes.
that's true. Oh, sorry, I was going to ask you one thing. When you made these plans, did you do that in consultation with your supervisor, or did they give you some inputs on your to-do lists, or it was like a broad task that was given to you, and then you broke it down into smaller pieces for you to manage? How did you? Yeah, your thoughts on that?
Okay, so sir, after discussion with my supervisor, we used to
Uh,
plan out that this is what we are going to accomplish. Say, for example, we are working on a paper, so we would
hmm,
sit together and discuss over it that this is what we are going to do. We are going to collect data, we are going to write this paper, and we are going to target the journal. So we had all this discussion amongst ourselves,
yeah.
and then later on, when I got back, I
Hmm,
broke down that into different segments, and
okay.
according to my schedule, according to my efficiency. Because if I
Hmm,
know that I have to write a paper, it comprises so many aspects. It could be
Hmm.
writing the different sections of the paper, collecting data, analyzing data. So I broke it down into different segments, and that's how I planned it as a template.
Okay.
So I did not
Huh.
work it out at a time, but I divided it
Huh.
as
So
per
starting
that.
off with a bigger, like a bigger milestone or bigger task, and then
Yes,
uh, making some logical
yes,
sub activities from
yes.
this. Hmm.
And then I
And
also
you,
have,
yeah,
yes.
go on.
So yes, as you said that beginning with bigger milestones, and then I
Hmm.
used a template. Whenever I write a
Hmm.
paper, I use a template for that.
Hmm.
So I have different sections, and I allocate the length to that particular section. Say, for example, I
Yeah.
have to write 200 words for the abstract,
Hmm.
1000 words for the LR. So that's how I divided my sections, and then I took up one section at a time so that I don't
Hmm.
overburden myself. So I planned
Yeah.
accordingly.
Yeah. Those small achievements and small successes are, I think, what
Absolutely.
keeps motivated and continuing, right? Hmm.
That's true,
So,
because as soon as we complete one section, we feel that sense of satisfaction, and definitely
yeah.
we should actually celebrate these small wins, I would say.
Yeah. So during the course of these six publications, you would have had received some rejections as well, I believe. So do you want to share some thoughts on that? How what you felt during that time, and how did you manage yourself, and got up
Okay,
and then still continue forward?
so my first paper was accepted,
Huh.
but unfortunately, my second paper got rejected.
Okay.
That's quite ironical. I was not expecting my first paper to be published at first, but
Huh.
it happened contrary to my expectations that the first one was published, and it was after the publication of my first paper, some around six
Hmm.
months post the publication of the first paper, that I
Yeah.
submitted my second paper, and within
Hmm.
15 days I got a rejection mail. But I would say I was very fortunate to have received a prompt reply from the
Yeah. Yeah.
editorial board, because
Uh,
I only waited for 15 days, and then
hmm.
I submitted to the other journal. So it did feel disheartening, but not to that
Hmm.
extent, because I knew that it was only a matter of 15 days. And I
Yeah.
immediately,
Yeah.
because I had option B, I had plan B in my mind, that what if it gets rejected from this journal? I had
Huh.
some other journals in my mind that, okay, if not this, then probably that. So within 15 days, I got the
So,
mail and submitted to other journal.
okay. So, how did you identify or shortlisted the journals where you want to submit?
Okay, so I would say the other two strategies which I followed.
Hmm.
First is through literature review. As I kept
Uh,
reading uh, good publications, so I identified the journals
hmm.
which publish such papers that are related to my domain, and I checked
Yeah.
the indexing of those journals, and likewise I kept preparing a list of the
Hmm.
journals in my domain. I shortlisted the seminal journals in my domain.
Hmm.
I read
Yeah.
papers from them. So it is through
Hmm.
literature review that I kept a list of, I would say, about 15 journals. Initially, I had a list of 15 journals, and out of
Hmm.
those
Hmm.
15, I had to shortlist, and then I began. After reading papers from my selected journal, I began writing paper according to the uh, area of that journal.
Huh. Okay.
And the second strategy, which later on during my PhD I followed, is that I prepared my paper already, and
Huh.
then using the journal finder, because nowadays we have so many online
Yeah.
resources available. So I used the
Hmm.
journal finder, because we have separate finders for Springer, for Sage, for
Hmm.
Scopus. So I wherein we can use the title of a paper or the
Yeah.
abstract. If we put in that abstract, the website comes up with suggestions of journals related to
Yeah.
our domain of research, and
Hmm.
that's how we can easily shortlist the journals.
Okay. No, I think that is a good practice because even before you start writing a journal, if you have a target journal in mind, then you can
Yes.
write it in a way that aligns with what that journal's preferences are, and that improves the chances of your journal article, paper getting published or accepted
Absolutely, sir.
by them.
And
Yeah.
it's quite
Mhm.
commendable that we can search it only through title of a paper,
Huh.
keywords, title,
Hmm.
abstract. We cannot even write the complete paper. So I
Yeah.
would, yes, we are lucky enough to be born in this generation of high-tech technological tools.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, any other tools that you used during your PhD?
So, sir, as I mentioned that for note making, I had my literature review matrix.
Oh,
Then for reading and referencing, I use Mendeley
okay.
because we can read, highlight in
Hmm.
Mendeley, and we can very efficiently come up with a bibliography and referencing list through Mendeley. So
Yeah.
I have been consistently using that. Some other recommendations could be Zotero, EndNote,
Okay. Hmm.
and then for visualization, I would say I used Lucid Chart because there are
Lucid
times
chart.
when we have to give diagrammatic representation of our research
Hmm.
model. So
Yeah.
Lucid Chart helped me a lot with that. And then for
Okay.
presentation purpose, I used Canva
Uh,
for presentations. And then, as I already mentioned, for journal finders as well, we had
huh.
so many websites wherein we
Did
can.
you did you use Grammarly or any other tool to
Yes,
improve your
yes, sir.
English?
Absolutely. I forgot to mention that for writing tools, we can nowadays
Hmm.
we also have Grammarly. So I have the
Hmm.
Grammarly plugin
Yeah.
in my Word document, and then there is Quillbot. Although I haven't used it as of now, but it is being
Hmm.
commonly used these days. So a paraphrasing tool called Quillbot.
12 bot.
But
Yeah. No,
I have
I
been
know
using
about.
Grammarly, I would say,
Hmm.
because it also helps with plagiarism detection. Although Turnitin is much better, Turnitin
Yeah.
is an authentic source for plagiarism detection, but to some
Hmm.
extent, Grammarly also helps with that if someone doesn't have access to Turnitin. Because if you don't
Uh,
have institutional access, you cannot get into that.
cannot use
So for
that.
that
That's
purpose,
right.
Grammarly would serve the purpose.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay. Yeah, because I think having access, not just having access, but knowing what tools to use during your
Right.
PhD, I think is very important because it can streamline a lot of your tasks, rather
Absolutely,
than
sir.
just uh, doing it all manually. So
Absolutely.
I had a list actually. I did a webinar I think last year or sometime
Right.
earlier where I talked about for what should PhD students do in their first year of PhD, second year
Yes,
of PhD, and
I
third
have
year
been
of
following
PhD.
that series. How to
Yeah,
plan your
how to
PhD in a year, in 2 years.
yeah. So I think if anyone who is listening now, I think you should check out that because in that first webinar, which is about what to do in your first year of PhD, I have listed a lot of apps and tools and plugins and extensions that you can use in a browser
Yes,
for various all different things that you can do during your PhD.
right.
So do check that out because I think it will Divya has used a lot of them already. So you can see she is quite productive by using these tools. And I guess leveraging whatever tools that we have, apps that we have that can help the research to be more effective or
Right,
productive in your research. I think
right.
you should use that. And one thing I
Yes,
think I should go and update now is there are a lot of AI tools that have now come that are making research even more promising, even more powerful and faster.
right.
So do check out that. Just search around AI tools for AI tools for research, and then you'll find many tools. I'll probably do a video on just on those tools itself because I can see they are really powerful to
Right.
help with research. So yeah, you can be
Definitely.
even more faster. Hmm.
It maximizes your productivity because when
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have resources, why do we waste our time manually doing all that? So,
That's right. Yeah. So I think it is all comes down to being productive,
yes,
being fast, and
yes,
putting our energy and resources to what matters the most. If
absolutely. So,
some technology can be leveraged to speed up our research, then why not?
Yes, sir.
That's.
And as
Mm,
as you also spoke about accessing different tools, so even sir, during PhD we also face this problem of access,
huh,
because some of them might have institutional access but some might not. So it is
yeah.
actually a concern from where to get indexed papers to read,
Yes.
and
Mm,
then different applications, say for example Turnitin. Not everyone has access to Turnitin, some institutes might
mm,
not have provided. So it actually
yeah.
becomes a task to identify, because if you want to read papers from reputed journals and we do not have access to it, so it becomes really difficult to
Mm.
identify, sir, where
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
go to read
Where to
papers.
go? Yeah. That's right. That's right. Cool. So I think overall, I feel that I mean, taking you as an example, I guess probably one of the best examples who has literally followed or completed the PhD by the book, I would say. So doing proper planning, revising the plan, executing the plan, having a publication strategy, going through the ups and downs of the PhD, all the successes and the challenges, and eventually coming out victorious at the end. I think it is really commendable, Divya. So,
Thank you,
and even
sir.
whatever you shared today with all of us has been quite enlightening, I would say. And anyone who watches this later on will also, I guess, can feel the energy that you have, the enthusiasm that you had, not only on the show, but I guess you have a similar personality when you are
Sir, I
working
beg to
on your
differ.
research.
It's your energy that's infectious.
Okay. Cool, cool. So yeah, Adivya, we are coming towards the end. It's more than an hour already.
Yes, sir.
So, as a concluding remarks, do you have anything that you would like to share with upcoming or those who are currently pursuing or thinking of pursuing the PhD?
Okay. Sir, as concluding the or summarizing what discussion we had today, I would say that
Mhm.
I would just point out 4 to 5 points. First is
Uh,
prioritize, understand your priorities and live them. Because if you
hmm.
don't identify your priority, then others will define it for you.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Very
second, I
well
would
said.
say keep it very simple,
Uh,
because there is a grace and beauty in simplicity as well. Do not tend to complicate things. Thirdly,
hmm.
quality over quantity anytime.
Yeah.
And lastly, I would say that PhD is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So
Uh,
do not expect overnight success. You will learn
yeah.
through failures.
No, I think those are really, really powerful
Yes.
four commandments from Divya
Thank you, sir.
that everyone, all scholars, I guess, should follow. I
Sir,
specifically
your
like
formalization tips, which I discussed today, actually, I have learned from you. The series that
thanks
I've
for
been
saying that.
following.
But I think the most interesting part of what you said just now was that keep it simple. There's
Absolutely.
uh, many a times during PhD we try to unnecessarily overcomplicate things and then create trouble for ourselves just
Yes, so
because of
we,
that.
we become
Hmm.
stressed, we might end into depression. So we should
Hmm.
also focus on our mental health. Peace of mind
Yeah,
is, I think, much more important than any other
than
achievement.
anything else. Yeah.
Yes,
And I think maintaining that and building or continuing to keep continue to be healthy and getting that peer support during your PhD rather than competing. I think be there with your
healthy
fellow
competition.
scholars,
Absolutely,
and
sir.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that is very important because 3 years will finish, PhD will finish, you will go somewhere else. So that time that you have with your friends, your PhD
Right.
buddies, I think it is.
Promoting that kind of healthy environment is very essential. We as scholars should provide a healthy environment to our
Hmm.
juniors, so that they
Yeah,
don't feel overwhelmed with so much of work.
yeah, exactly. Cool. All right. I think Divya, this was a very a fabulous conversation with
Thank
you.
you so much, sir.
And it is always so nice to see uh, or to connect with students and scholars like you, whom I knew when you were doing your PhD, and now you have completed your PhD. And I can see that
So
the
you have
growth.
witnessed it all.
Yeah, so I think it was good. I didn't realize how the time passed. That 1 hour, I thought, oh, what would I be
Yes.
talking to Divya? And now it is past an hour, and it still feels like yeah, there is a lot more to talk and a lot more to
It's
share.
an endless conversation, sir.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, so everyone, I think I would like to formally thank Divya to come on the show, share her experiences, and for all of you who are listening, I think take watch this maybe a few times, because she has shared so many useful insights for all of you who are probably pursuing your PhD now. That I think pick up everything that Divya had said and try to apply, and then you would see the way she has kind of uh, finished her PhD on time with 6 publications. I think if she has done it, you can do it too.
I
So, on that
completely agree.
note, I would say thank you very much, Divya. Thank you for coming
So
and
it's my
sharing your
privilege to be
thoughts.
invited here today. All
Ah,
thanks to you for having
yeah,
me on your show.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
guys, have a good night. Take care. Bye.